The Zodiac Killer murdered at least 5 victims in Northern California between 1968 and 1969, and we still don't know who he is. The case of the Zodiac Killer remains one of the most infamous, unsolved serial murder cases in American history. The mysterious killer's reign of terror in Northern California during the late 1960s left a trail of victims, puzzling messages, and unanswered questions that continue to haunt investigators and the general public to this very day. Friend, before we go any further, I would like to humbly request you, please subscribe to my channel so we can reach 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. Your support truly means the world to me. Hello viewers. Today, in this video, I will tell you the chilling story of the Zodiac Killer, the murderer at the center of America's most infamous unsolved mystery. So, without wasting another moment, let's begin the video. Although many potential suspects have been named in the case, none have ever been officially identified as the Zodiac Killer. The brutal nature of his crimes makes this mystery even more chilling. The Zodiac Killer is believed to have murdered at least 5 people and injured 2 others who managed to survive between 1968 and 1969. But that wasn't the end of it. From 1969 into the early 1970s, the notorious killer sent taunting letters to local newspapers and eerie messages to police. Some of his letters included ciphers that only further masked his identity. To date, no one has been able to identify the Zodiac Killer, and some worry that he may still be out there. The Zodiac Killer's brutal spree begins the Lake Herman Road murders. The Zodiac Killer's confirmed victims include 7 individuals, 5 of whom were tragically murdered. The other 2 survived their encounters with the elusive assailant. Each attack was ruthlessly cold-blooded and sent shockwaves through the communities of Northern California. The first attack occurred on December 20th, 1968, when 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and 17-year-old David Arthur Faraday were shot to death in a secluded Lover's Lane in Benicia, California. The young couple had been enjoying a quiet evening together when their lives were brutally cut short. According to Michael D. Kelleher and David Van Nuys' book, This is the Zodiac Speaking, the high school couple were attacked shortly after 11 p.m. following an investigation by the police. Authorities posited that a car had pulled up next to their vehicle, approximately 10 feet away. The mysterious driver then purportedly exited his vehicle and approached the teens, firing gunshots at their car. These initial gunshots did not strike either of the victims, leading investigators to conclude that perhaps the shooter ordered the terrified couple to exit their vehicle. Both teens attempted to flee the scene, but only Jensen was able to make it out of the car. Faraday was fatally shot in the head as Jensen took off, though she didn't make it far. The shooter fired several shots, 5 of which struck Jensen in the back. Then, the killer got in his car and left. The Zodiac Killer strikes again, the Blue Rock Springs murder. The second attack took place on July 4th, 1969, targeting Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Renaud Mageau, 19, at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California. Ferrin was fatally shot, while Mageau survived his injuries. Ferrin and Mageau had met at a local restaurant earlier, and despite the fact that Ferrin was married, the two had apparently spent much of July 4th together. Ferrin likely arrived at Mageau's home around 11:45 p.m., after which the pair traveled to a parking lot at Blue Rock Springs. Eerily, the parking lot was close to the Lover's Lane, where Faraday and Jensen had been shot, just about 2 miles away from the first crime scene. Once again, another car arrived, shortly after the pair entered the parking lot. This time, according to Mageau, the driver sat in their car with the lights off for some time before suddenly driving off. But they returned just 5 minutes later and parked closer to Ferrin's car. Like before, the driver exited their vehicle and approached the pair, shining a flashlight inside. Believing the person was a police officer, Mageau began to search for his ID, and almost immediately, the stranger fired a gun, hitting both Mageau and Ferrin. Panicked, Mageau leapt into the car's back seat, while Ferrin slumped forward. At one point, Mageau said that he yelled, after which the shooter fired at both of them again, before driving off and fleeing the area. Shortly after midnight, on July 5th, 3 youths entered the parking lot and discovered the horrific scene. They called the police, who arrived to find Ferrin unresponsive and Mageau in a state of shock. Mageau ultimately survived his wounds, but Ferrin was sadly pronounced dead at 12:38 a.m. Then, chillingly, just 2 minutes later, at 12:40 a.m., the Vallejo Police Department received another phone call, this time coming from a payphone close to the station. The person on the other end said this: "I want to report a double murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." About a month later, during the first week of August, ominous letters, written by the killer, started arriving at the offices of the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. In one letter, the killer identified himself for the first time as the Zodiac. In 3 of the letters, each sent to a different newspaper, there were clues to solve. A 408-symbol cryptogram, which the Zodiac Killer said would lead to the codebreaker uncovering his identity. This was, of course, not true, though that initial cipher and its message were soon solved. It reads, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to sloy down or atop my collectiog of slaves for my afterlife." Eborieta Methpiti. Notably, in the letters, the Zodiac Killer took responsibility for both the Blue Rock Springs attack and the Lake Herman Road murders. The third attack, the Lake Berryessa murder. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac struck again at Lake Berryessa near Napa, California. He stabbed 22-year-old Cecilia Shepard and 20-year-old Brian Hartnell. Shepard succumbed to her injuries days later, but not before, helping Hartnell give a description of their attacker. Miraculously, Hartnell survived. The two had been picnicking near the lake on a beautiful day. As they were enjoying their time together, they said that they were approached by a white male with brown hair who stood roughly 5 feet, 10 inches tall. The man wore a black hood with clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes and a waistline bib. On the bib was a symbol resembling a crossed circle. The man claimed to be an escaped convict and ordered Hartnell to give him money and his car keys, which Hartnell agreed to do. The man then handed Shepard some plastic clothesline and instructed her to tie up Hartnell. When she was done, he did the same to her. However, the Zodiac broke tradition here, stabbing the two of them with a knife rather than shooting them. Hartnell was stabbed 6 times. Shepard was stabbed 10 times. Then, the attacker wrote the message: Vallejo, 12, 20, 68, 7, 4, 69, Sept, 27, 69, 6:30, by knife on Hartnell's car, along with his now infamous cross-circle symbol. Once again, the killer called police to report a murder, no, a double murder, and said that he was responsible. Soon afterward, radio reporter Pat Stanley found the payphone that the call was made from, with the phone receiver laying on the shelf, eerily. This phone was close to the local sheriff's office. Meanwhile, a fisherman had heard Hartnell and Shepard's screams and contacted park rangers. When rangers arrived, Shepard was still alive. She and Hartnell were taken to a hospital, and though Hartnell survived, Shepard slipped into a coma from which she would never wake up. The Zodiac Killer's final confirmed murder in Presidio Heights. The final confirmed attack occurred on October 11, 1969, when the Zodiac Killer fatally shot San Francisco taxi driver Paul Stein. The killer entered the 29-year-old's taxi and asked him for a ride to Presidio Heights. Just before 10 p.m., the killer fatally shot Stein, pocketed the cab driver's wallet and car keys, and then fled the scene. Before he left, though, the killer also cut off a piece of Stein's blood-stained shirt. He later mailed the piece to a local newspaper to prove his responsibility for yet another horrific murder. Witnesses provided a description of the perpetrator, and a police sketch was widely circulated. They described the attacker as a husky man who was wearing a dark or black jacket. The witnesses also described watching the killer rifling through the victim's clothing and cleaning up the cab. Near the crime scene, around the Presidio Army base, a man matching the description was seen, but because a dispatcher had inaccurately described the killer as a black man, not a white man in a black jacket, officers saw no reason to take this man into custody and released him. It was the last confirmed killing of the notorious Zodiac Killer, but it was hardly the last time that his name would be mentioned. The investigation into the Zodiac Killer. The investigation into the Zodiac Killer's crimes was often frustrating for authorities. The case spanned multiple jurisdictions and involved countless law enforcement personnel. Of course, this was only made worse by the macabre cat-and-mouse game the killer was playing with police. The first major break in the Zodiac Killer investigation came with the identification of Arthur Lee Allen as a potential suspect. Allen was brought to the attention of authorities due to his previous run-ins with the law, how close he lived to the Zodiac crime scenes, the fact that he wore a watch with the Zodiac's infamous symbol, and his alleged plans to create a novel about a serial killer who attacked couples and sent letters to the police. However, despite extensive scrutiny and investigations by the police, no conclusive evidence linking Allen to the crimes was ever found. The lack of physical evidence and the killer's meticulousness in avoiding leaving traces behind made the investigation even more challenging. The Zodiac Killer's ciphers, including the infamous Z340 cipher, also presented a significant challenge for code breakers trying to uncover the serial killer's messages and, hopefully, his identity. It was not until 2020, over 50 years after the Z340 cipher was sent, that the code was finally cracked by a team of cryptographers. Unfortunately, the message did not reveal the Zodiac Killer's identity, but rather contained more of his taunting ramblings, including, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me," further frustrating investigators. Two Zodiac ciphers remain officially unsolved to this day. Though one engineer claimed that he solved them, many experts are doubtful that they will ever be definitively decoded because of how short they are, making the encryption key incredibly difficult to unravel and understand. Over the years, numerous other Zodiac suspects have been investigated, including Gary Francis Post, who was named by a group of former law enforcement investigators known as the Case Breakers. but none have been definitively linked to the crimes. The case remains unsolved, and some law enforcement agencies in Northern California continue to receive tips and leads, hoping that one day the Zodiac Killer's identity will be revealed. The harassment of reporter Paul Avery. Throughout the ongoing investigation into the Zodiac Killer, one San Francisco reporter, Paul Avery, was covering the case extensively. Avery's connection to the Zodiac began soon after he started covering the murders. He quickly became a central figure in the media frenzy surrounding the case and started receiving letters directly from the killer. One of Avery's most significant contributions was linking the Zodiac to the 1966 murder of Sherry Jo Bates in Riverside, California. He discovered similarities between the Bates case and the Zodiac's confirmed crimes, including a cryptic letter sent to the police. Avery's revelation expanded the scope of the investigation and fueled speculation about the Zodiac Killer's true identity and how he may have taken more victims than expected. The Zodiac Killer's fixation on Paul Avery intensified after his reporting on the potential Bates connection, and in 1970, Avery received a chilling Halloween card from the Zodiac, apparently threatening him. Avery's involvement in the Zodiac case took a toll on his personal life and health. He struggled with excessive drinking and smoking, and the psychological impact of being targeted by the killer. Despite these challenges, he remained committed to uncovering the truth and bringing the Zodiac to justice. He worked up until his death from emphysema at age 66. While Avery never identified the Zodiac, he did publicize the possibility that the killer could have murdered more than 5 victims. Indeed, today, many investigators believe that the true number of victims could very well be much higher, but there is no way of knowing for sure. Unanswered questions about the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer case is shrouded in numerous mysteries that continue to perplex investigators and the public alike. One of the most enduring questions is the Zodiac Killer's true identity. Despite decades of investigation and countless theories, the Zodiac's name and face remain unknown. The lack of a definitive suspect has fueled speculation and given rise to numerous theories, ranging from the plausible to the outlandish. Another mystery revolves around the killer's motives. While some believe the Zodiac sought notoriety and attention, reveling in the fear and panic he caused, others speculate that he may have been driven by deeper psychological issues or a desire to exert power and control. The killer himself claimed in letters to be collecting slaves for the afterlife. The killer's letters offer glimpses into his psyche, but they also raise more questions than they answer, leaving his true motives shrouded in darkness. The full extent of the Zodiac's crimes is also uncertain. While 7 victims are officially attributed to him, 5 of whom were murdered, the killer claimed to have murdered as many as 37 people. Whether these claims are true or merely the boasts of a disturbed individual remains unknown, though the possibility that there may be other victims who have never been identified only makes the case all the more bone-chilling. There is a reason why the Zodiac Killer remains such an infamous figure. His case, perhaps more than any other serial killer in American history, is still shrouded in the unknown. More than 50 years after his murder spree began, although he received plenty of press coverage at the time of his crimes, and even more coverage in the decades since, there is an undeniable sense of mystery surrounding the Zodiac Killer that remains strong to this day. Viewers, This was the terrifying and chilling story of the Zodiac Killer, the murderer, at the center of America's most infamous unsolved mystery. What do you think about this chilling story? Share your thoughts in the comment box below and let us know how you feel about this gruesome act. Thanks for watching. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling true crime stories. And remember, if you or anyone you know is battling dark thoughts, don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional. The weight of these stories, they can take a toll. So please, take care of yourself. Until next time, and I'll meet you in a new, interesting video.